much of capital spending.
Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. Today's great show is with the author of the Illinois Pension Scam book, Bill Zettler, forwarded by Jack Roser. And you can get this on championnews.net or at amazon.com. And during the break, Michael Brown, you had something you had to say.
Well, we got to look at some solutions. And part of the problem has been they have projected the returns of the pension investments would be up at 8-something%, and they've only had 2%. So why can't pensions, all the teachers' parent pensions, be based on the actual return that they get on the investment? This way they've got to live within their means, or some kind of fair compensation where it's even with the private sector.
You've posed the question well, Bill. Bill, what's the answer to what the problem is we've got here, where they promise them all these skyrocketing benefits?
Right. You can promise huge pensions if you pretend you're going to get 8 or 10% returns. In the early 90s, they actually were at 10%. So what happens is if you don't get their returns, and the reason you have to use that is because you have to project forward through the lifetime of the retirees. So you can't just do it year by year. You have to say, this guy's going to live 30 years. How are we going to pay him in year 30? Well, if you get 8% return, it's easy. But if you get 4% return, which is what Moody's says, then your problem becomes a $200 billion pension, unfunded pension, instead of a $95 billion.
Unfunded.
Right.
Can't pay it. And nobody's going to loan the state all this money that we...
No, we're Detroit. We're Detroit. We're on the way to being Detroit.
But we can't. A state cannot go bankrupt.
They can run out of money. They can't pay it.
So what ultimately will happen?
There's no law to run out of bankruptcy, but they sure in hell can go broke, and they can't buy anything or do anything because they are just plain busted.
So then what happens? I mean, does the whole system collapse at that point? What will happen?
Sure, there's going to be fewer policemen. There'll be fewer people fixing the roads. They'll be laying people off. There's no reason they can't freeze the salaries. They ought to tell all employees, including teachers, salaries are going to be frozen for the next 3 years.
It affects every service of the state, if you can call what they do a service.
Because if they don't freeze the salaries, there's going to be layoffs. So you tell all the teachers at the low end, you're either going to be laid off if they don't freeze these salaries. They're going to want to freeze the salaries.
Well, and one of the reasons why this is so important right now is because, and people in Illinois don't realize it, but the counties in Illinois have been bailing out Chicago for decades. Washington has been bailing out Illinois for decades. The problem is, Illinois is broke. We can't help Chicago. Washington's broke. We can't help Illinois. That's why Obama's been pushing so hard to get some money, some stimulus money in these states that are dying.
That's a very good point. That $183,000 pension for that driver's ed teacher is being paid by the people in McLean County.
Sure.
And downstate, because it's a state cost. It's not a local school district cost.
Right, right.
We're in deep weeds. Jack, any solutions?
Well, what we got to do is realize that the cause of the twin evils of the state of Illinois, we are the most busted, broke state of the union, and the other one is everybody knows Chicago and Illinois is a bunch of criminals when it comes to politics. This is the most crooked state of all 50. So anybody that's talking about getting elected to anything, come on, you get disgusted. They've got the two worst things that could happen to the state, and we're the winners of being worst. So some politician that's running for any job, especially school board, or anything that has to do with spending your money, anything to do with Springfield, any of these people ought to be screaming at the world that we can't pay all of this money into the stinking IEA unions that's corrupted the state and driven us broke. The IEA wears the collar.
Hear, hear.
And that's going to wrap up another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio. We're brought to you by championnews.net. Please be sure to catch our show next week. It's going to be great. We will see you next week right here with Champion News.
Champion News Talk Radio is brought to you by championnews.net in association with Overflow Entertainment.